Welcome to Gary Has Issues. I'm Gary Kroeger, and as you'll see, I do have issues. The format of this program is not to necessarily debate, but to give voice, to bring language to other progressives so we can strengthen our fight against social injustice, to further the cause of environmental stewardship, economic prosperity, and quite frankly, world peace. With me, as always, is Ken Ceizler in Los Angeles, who battles his own demons and issues. And joining us today is Paul Barrosse, a writer, producer, actor in Los Angeles, a friend for over 40 years, Paul. And another Paul Block, a producer, an executive producer who's living in Portland, the eye of the storm. But as with every program, I sort of start with a little bit of a rant du jour to sort of set the table. Here's what's Gary's issue today. My oldest son asked me just yesterday, as a matter of fact, he said, "Dad, what is the greatest threat to America as you see it? Is it oligarchy, elections manipulated by wealth, or perhaps the Russians, economic disparity?" And I said, well, those are issues in crisis, but they're the result of inattention to foundational principles. The root cause of our dysfunction is malignant hypocrisy. Beyond the head-scratching hypocrisy of devout Christians supporting the least Christian leader since Nero, it's the lockstep support for a president with a fascist disregard for the First Amendment. In regard to the protests in Portland, someone tweeted today that I noticed, "We didn't protest Obama like this, but look at what the liberals are doing to Trump." Well, that, my friends, is a transcendent definition of hypocrisy. I replied, because we didn't elect an asshole. Then my better angels took over, and I reminded this person that the entire Republican Party agreed to and followed the directive of Mitch McConnell to obstruct every single measure the new President Obama offered in order to, and I quote, "destroy his presidency." So when people protest social injustice perpetuated by a man who besmirches the constitutional premise of free speech by sending in troops to intentionally agitate protesters who are calling attention to systemic inequality, racism, it is false to condemn their dissent. Now, at the risk of sounding pedestrian, I implore everyone to keep protests within the parameters of peaceable assembly. Violence is also hypocritical. We lose ground when we're not standing on the higher ground. Anyway, those are my thoughts right now. I want to start talking to the two Pauls, and I want to start with you, Paul Barrosse. You recently went on, if I could call it perhaps a pilgrimage, to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to witness firsthand a Trump rally. The stage is yours, Paul. What was that like?
When we first got to Tulsa, what amazed us was how quiet it was. Our hotel was only about 5-6 blocks from the Box Center, and I expected to see just MAGA, MAGA, MAGA. I expected to see it everywhere. No, it was all confined to basically a 6 square block area, 2 blocks deep, 3 blocks wide in front of the Box Center, and those were the only people we ever saw.
Did you buy tickets to the event to go inside the rally?
That was the gorgeous thing. You didn't have to buy them. We had them, but we weren't going to use them.
Okay.
And the reason that we had them is because our 20-something daughter told us about, hey, you can get tickets to the Tulsa event, and all our friends are doing it to jack the numbers up. So, right. That played out in our family. And so we could have gone in, but believe me, they were packing, they were having to get shoved through these gates like sardines. There was no way to socially distance there. And we stood right next to, Senator Langford while he was waiting in line, just glad handing everybody, and they're all hanging on him and mobbing him. I don't know how it is that he's not COVID positive after this thing. Right. But it was very, very clear that, nobody was blocking anybody's access to this thing. So any stories you hear about protesters, there was no protest until everybody was in the building, Trump was speaking, and then some people from Black Lives Matter came, and also we had attended an anti-hate rally 6 or 7 blocks away, and so some of those people started coming over.
I have a friend who is a staunch Republican, and he went to a big Trump rally, I think here in Cedar Rapids, and he was so, as a hardcore Republican, a Trump supporter, so turned off by what he saw on the perimeter, from Second Amendment alleged supporters, Confederate flags, even maybe, dare I say, a swastika. He was so turned off by what he saw, he's removed himself from being a Trump supporter.
Well, I saw one guy who was selling T-shirts and had the most chilling T-shirt on because it was Lady Liberty, only she was holding a pistol instead of her tort. And I thought, if that's what you think, if that's what you're into, then there's no help. I don't have time to talk to you and reverse your course of thinking. That's not true. We just have to motivate everybody to get out and vote.
Well, let's talk about that just for a second, though, because there is a contingent like the Lincoln Project of Republicans who are hard, fast set against a Trump reelection, and they are supporting Biden. Are there some fish in the sea there? Are there people we can bring over? It won't be the person in the MAGA hat and the Confederate flag, as a sweater.
There are fish in the sea, but it's not the people in the MAGA hat and the people with the shirt with Lady Liberty with a pistol in her hand.
But they're at most 40%.
Yeah,
at most the hardcore 40%.
Yeah, and it's going to wind. They're going to get down to that, 36%, 38%, nub, and those people are just, between whatever their religious proclivities are and whatever their poor education was, and decades and decades of being told that you may be poor, but you're a white man, so you're better than the black man. My dad was from New Orleans. I know the South, and he told me, look, you're a Catholic, so you are an N-word down here anyway, so it's so ingrained.
So, Paul, your takeaway from going to Tulsa was that it was over, the whole protest or whatever, the whole event itself was exaggerated by the media and by the news media.
Yeah, my big takeaway from Tulsa is that the national media does a very, very poor job of reporting.
Right.
I'm a television producer, so I'm looking for the right shot. Nobody got the shot, across the street from where I was, where there were 100 different sheriffs and National Guardsmen all marshaling, there was probably an armed, security guy, whether he be National Guard or, people we didn't quite recognize what uniforms they were wearing. There was probably one of them for every 5-person people there.
Well, I think that's the frustration that Paul Block is feeling in Portland, right? That it's a different perspective living there and seeing what's going on as opposed to what's being portrayed on the news.
Well, when you get to the news, it all holds true. If it bleeds, it leads. So they look for the trouble, they look for the fire, they look for the guns, they look for the crazy people.
And tell us what is really happening then. Your eyes are on it.
Okay. Portland is separated into quadrants, northeast, southeast, northwest, southwest, separated by the Willamette River about 50-50. Downtown Portland, which is where the federal building is, possibly 3 square blocks of downtown Portland is where it all is centering. First of all, it happened when BLM stuff started. There was broken windows, there was looting, there was all that stuff, and the police were handling it. And eventually that died down and became protest. There were people in the streets protesting every day. Then came the federal police. Then the protests got angry, saying, get the fuck out of our city. Who are you people? This is our city, not yours. And if you're going to come here to shoot us, we're going to shoot back at you. So that's when the firecrackers and the lasers and the rocks and whatever these guys on the Portland side had came to bear. And the protests grew from about, I'd say 400 or 500 hardcore BLM protesters to about 4,000 or 5,000 Portlanders saying, get the hell out of our city.
So it's escalating simply because the feds are there.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if you go outside that 3 or 4 square block area, come to my house in the middle of the city. I live in Northwest Portland. The streets are lined with people socially distancing, sitting quietly outside cafes, having croissants and beer.
And all of the protest organizers, are they just doing it on social media, just like come out tonight at because it's only at night, right, that these events are saying, like, join us at 7 o'clock at the federal building?
No, No, it's not happening. There's no social media organization. These are the people from Portland. When the sun goes down, the people show up and say, get out of our town.
Let's talk about what this actually means. I mean, the very definition of fascism is far-right, authoritarian, ultranationalism characterized by a dictatorial power that forcibly suppresses opposition. That's exactly what's happening here.
Except for one thing, Gary, they are now saying they're using the far left. Trump has said numerous times the far left is leading us to fascism. And it's the other way on the spectrum.
Of course it's the other way, because I contend that he intentionally, of course he knew that sending in the troops would agitate this. Some bricks would be thrown, and then you point the finger and go, you see, they're violent.
But he's calling them fascist.
Exactly.
He's saying those far left people are fascist. He doesn't even understand. Far left people are communist. I get that. But it's the far right people. That's where fascism comes from.
But he's very good at turning a word.
Because as a kid who grew up in Cleveland and heard within like 15, 20 minutes of what went on, at Kent State, and my brother went to Kent State, my cousin went to Kent State at that time, as soon as I saw what was going on in Portland, and I thought about this too when Lafayette Square was cleared, I thought, somebody's going to get killed one of these days, There's going to be shots fired, firecrackers are going to go off and somebody's going to think they're being fired at. And, even last night there was a guy that was shot, and it's hard to sort it out. The guy was driving through the crowd. He reached out and he shot somebody, but that guy was also armed, So the presence of guns in these situations, are, something's going to happen.
Not that we would wish that to happen, but could that be the moment where America says enough? Like in Selma, for example, when the news covered it, and then people saw black women being hosed in the street and being,
No, that's because back in those days, we all got the news from a similar source. There were only like you'd get it on national news. Nowadays, internet, you can find the news that you want. Go to Fox News and they cover things completely from a different point, and they don't. So I don't know that in this day and age where we all get our facts and information from so many different fragmented sources, that there will be that come together moment that we all share and go, okay.
But George,
actually, Ken, I would argue that we are having that moment
with George Floyd,
and that the response to George Floyd and the response to what happened at Lafayette Square, because remember at Lafayette Square, it wasn't just Black Lives Matter, people. It wasn't kids from the inner city. These are kids from Chevy Chase, Maryland, and Silver Springs and stuff like that. These are wealthy families who send their kids to very nice schools, and they were all out there and they were getting gassed. Right. And let's remember, it was when suburban housewives, during the Vietnam War finally said enough is enough, So I think we're at that moment.
I hope so. I'm a little bit more pessimistic just in terms of ever since, Sandy Hook, I thought, well, that changes everything.
Right.
If we as a nation can't come together after 22 young children and talk about gun control, even today, even with George Floyd, I'm seeing this whole thing is they're going, that's already pushed aside, because now all we're talking about is law and order in this country. And I have a friend who didn't like Trump, but now, given the fact that he's sending in the troops and stopping the looting and all that, is playing, but he's voting for him. He's going all in on Trump because he's the law and order guy. He's the guy that stand up and fight these looters. They're not protesters, by the way.
Pay attention to the polls. The polls say this is not working for Trump. The polls say this is hurting Trump.
Trump's got another problem, and that's that he's blowing it on the pandemic. And so far more people are dying in hospital rooms than are dying in the streets. And so he's got a problem. The more he focuses on this and tries to manufacture, this crisis, which isn't a crisis, I think it's a losing strategy.
Right, I do too. I'm not talking about his reelection. I'm talking about whether or not there's going to be real change in this country.
All of this plays into the right-wing ideology. Going back to what Kenny was talking about with why didn't anything happen after Sandy Hook? Well, they did come up with their solution. Arm the teachers. They don't see it as a problem with firearms.
Yeah.
Arm the teachers. Right. Put more guards at the doors.
Right.
And what's their solution?
It is a fascist answer.
Yeah. And what's their solution for the pandemic? Screw it. Go to school.
Let
I do
people
have
like us die. That's the
Absolutely.
solution.
This is a little bit of a pivot because it's just out of curiosity. So, yeah. Do you guys have a pick for Biden or a choice on Biden's vice president who you think would be the...
Well, from the beginning, I've been for Biden-Harris. That's been me from the beginning.
Okay.
I shift a little bit. I'm still Biden-Harris, but I think there are 3 other women that might be acceptable alternatives. Coming up, I believe, is Susan Rice.
Right,
I don't think she had much of a shot a few months ago, but she's starting to be something. I think Tammy Duckworth is something, and I think Tammy Baldwin is something. I think those are...
well, that is the short list right there. And
Did you think it was a smart move? Did you think Klobuchar pulling out and saying, I think we should go with a black person was like
yes.
No,
the right
I think
thing?
pulling
You don't
out...
think that was a good move?
No, I think pulling out was a good move. I do think we should go with a black person, just
Right.
for the record.
Yes.
But I didn't think she should say it out loud, because once that doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen, then Biden has disappointed a lot of black people.
It also,
But I
but
think
also that
Biden
kind
was
of thing,
already on
the friend I spoke of earlier, the fact that she turned him also against, it's almost like affirmative action to become the vice president, which he objects to in the same way he wants a law and order president. So he sees that as reverse discrimination. So I'm just saying that some of those things play into their side, into their
Well, the
into
whole
their
reverse
rhetoric.
discrimination thing ignores the fact of 400 years of, of slavery and redlining.
They don't
and
understand
Jim
what
Crow.
the word white privilege is.
Right. Of course they don't. So, we can't worry about that guy. We can't make policy, or can't make strategy.
Well, we
based on
can.
whether or not we're going to drive that guy away.
We can't. We have done a terrible job in messaging, and the worst thing we have done recently is this defund the police message.
Yeah.
People, we've gone out and said defund the police, and I have had so many conversations about this where people literally believe we mean to get rid of police departments.
Well, whoever
All their
came
money.
up with that term failed.
That's what I'm talking about. So that's what I'm talking about. The messaging.
You have to reimagine American policing. And you have to shape it for the particular community. I think you have to pass laws that say, look, the police department needs to look like the community it serves.
Right, but that slogan is awful.
Oh,
Well, the slogan was
terrible. It's terrible.
Stupid.
And try to talk to a 22-year-old or a 24-year-old about that. And it's very, very difficult, because their whole feeling is us 4 guys, we're the people who didn't get it done in our lifetime.
Come November 3rd, is it the 3rd? November 3rd, are the elections?
Yes.
November 3rd.
And he wins.
I
I know it's unthinkable. I know it's unthinkable.
I go to Portugal.
I had my landed immigrant papers when I was working up there. I gave them up. They'll give it back to me. I go to Canada if he wins again.
I don't know if I could take it anymore. Every day I have anxiety. We all do.
Me too.
The guy's tweeting, and I said this to Gary. I get up and I don't follow many people on Twitter. I just to check to see what he's doing, because he's tweeting and it's 9 o'clock in the morning. And I think, well, doesn't he have a meeting? There must be a phone call. Somebody he's tweeting at 9, and then 11. Say he's tweeting at 10, 11. There must be something for him to do. Read a brief.
They call it executive time.
Executive time.
Nice.
I would like to throw out just one more thought and sort of wrap this up. I'm optimistic. I'm pessimistic right now. Biden leads in most every poll and most every demographic, but anything can happen in 100 days. This alleged cure for COVID-19, let's say it works. He takes credit for it. The debates which could happen, look, sometimes Joe can look like a deer in headlights, and Trump's a terrible debater because he has no information, but he's a bully, and that works. He could possibly make Joe Biden look terrible. Suddenly, there could be a huge shift. It could happen. Please tell me I'm wrong.
Here's the reason it can't happen. Okay, I'll go out on a limb and say Trump won by the thinnest of margins because, as much as people thought they knew him, he was an unknown quantity. He was a character on TV. They kind of knew him, from the Howard Stern show. Even I thought, when I first saw him on the Republican debate stage, how refreshing that somebody's finally calling the Iraq War bullshit, and a Republican is doing it.
How far-fetched is this? Let's say it's a close election. Let's say Biden would have won well, but there was suppression and he only wins by a little bit, to which Trump has already admitted that he's not going to easily walk out if he can convince people that this was a rigged election. Even Republicans are saying this guy might not leave. How realistic is that?
100%, in my opinion, 100% in the hands of John Roberts. Who does he administer the oath to on January 19th, 20th, whenever it is? If he says, I'm talking to Biden, Trump is out. If he says, well, I don't know who I'm talking to, Trump is in.
Here's one nice thing, and that's we'll actually know fairly soon on election night. Because if Florida goes to Biden, game over.
Well, that's the positive note I've been looking for here. So I'm just going to say, Paul Block, last word. Positive, negative, anything you want to say.
Go Lakers.
Really?
Interesting. Paul Barrosse, give me hope.
I'm for the Lakers too. And
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
and I'm for I'm for a Democratic victory and in a landslide.
Yeah, I don't want to be a smartass. I agree with Paul on that. I'm for a Democratic victory in a landslide. I think it'll happen. I'm scared of voter suppression. That's it. That's my last word on it.
Now, this may not make it in, but I want to talk about it. I don't know if you mentioned in the introduction, but Paul Block was Booker's producer on The Tonight Show for many years.
I was a booker and segment producer on The Tonight Show for 6 years.
And he probably would not have booked two Pauls on a show, I would imagine. That would have been the first thing you would have avoided. But
Paul B's, both of them, Paul B's.
But all the talk show hosts now, from Colbert to Kimmel, all the late night hosts, it's all political.
Yeah, it is. Well, Johnny was political, but he sort of kept it under. Johnny hated Nixon, and I think Johnny's jokes were one of the things that did Nixon in. That's my opinion. And they're all political. My problem with all the talk show hosts these days is they're all trying to be Johnny Carson and Steve Allen. I mean, it's the same format over and over and over again. I find the COVID formats refreshing because you get to see Colbert sitting in his basement talking to his wife.
Was there anything that happened on Carson that was particularly, that he did take a stand publicly?
Johnny did not like when we booked politicians on the show. It was a virtual no-no. The only one that kept coming back was a governor of California, especially Ronald Reagan, because Freddie DeCordova and Ronald Reagan were good friends.
And Pat Paulson, but that was kind of somewhere between comedy and politics.
You're right. No, I long for Johnny Carson back on television.
Oh my God.
Oh, us all. But now it's really, I hate to say this, but now, I tell young people that my role model, the guy who I adored and idolized, was Johnny Carson, of which they respond, who?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. When I was up in San Francisco, I was working for a company called Tech TV. It was owned by Paul Allen, and it was 24 hours a day technology. And I was the oldest guy at the place, obviously. And most of my kids were 22, 23 years old because they're the ones that were up on technology. There were people there that had never heard of Ringo Starr.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Damn it, we're getting old.
With that. I want to offer some closing thoughts here, tying some of this stuff together. We talk about, will we leave the country? What if Trump were elected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But really, it's also about the down ballot. Our lives are affected by where they put the sewer drain. It's affected by what happens at the State House. And we've got to recapture the down ballot. We've got to overturn Citizens United. That's where things change. The Republicans were very good at raising money in the trenches. Now, as a politician here in Iowa, I was in the trenches. Democrats, we didn't have any money. We focused everything up the funnel to the presidential election. Everything went up, and there was nothing for us here where actual decisions are made that affect people's lives. The Republicans, with the contract with America, with Newt Gingrich, turned that around, and they brought the money to the state houses, even the city halls, to the congressional races and the Senate races. And that's why they have such a massive support structure.
Take a look
we
at
did
Jim
not
Jordan.
carry that water.
Take a look at Jim Jordan's district. Take a look at it and look at It's a zigzag maze to try to get him a district that he can be in. They avoid every city. It's all
because
over.
they took over and they gerrymandered. They
And by the way,
gerrymandered everything
it was
because they owned the state houses.
That was also where all the Koch money went to. The Charles and David Koch. They financed that. Said we're going at the states. We're not going at the federal government. And they put up all that money.
See, I went with the Coke money. I was thinking Coke, cocaine.
So
I went that way.
Old time Hollywood.
So Gary, does this
All
mean?
right, but I have issues. There you are, folks. Cue the music.
No, Gary. What
hey,
about
guys,
what about my
no,
colonoscopy?
that's where we're going right now.
Oh, okay.
We're going right to you right now, Kenny. You close it with your issue.
Okay. I know it's not an issue. It's just, since with the calling the show right now, Gary has issues and Kenny has too much free time, which I do. So it's kind of like, what am I doing in my free time? And since I have free time and I have Medicare, I can take care of all my ailments. It's free. It's literally, it's not free, but it's fantastic. I mean, I remember listening to people, when they register, they go up to the nurse's office, to the nurse, and they go, what kind of insurance do you have? And you go, I have Medicare. And I go, the poor person on government. Now I walk in and go like, hey, I'm on Medicare. Let's do the works. Check my blood, check this, whatever. What do you need? Because by the time you're done, it's like, oh, your copay is $15. It's incredible. So anyhow, I'm having all my ailments checked. I haven't had a colonoscopy in 15 years. And
you're due.
I just had it on Thursday.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, it's a lot better now. It's still awful, but it's a lot better. But my two things. One, at the end of it, I got 4K pictures, which I would show, but I keep trying to show it to people, but nobody wants to see. But I got like these incredible 4K pictures of my inside colon thing. It's like if you went on a ride, at the end of the ride, they showed you pictures of you on the ride. Yeah.
Splash Mountain, Kenny's
colon. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so it went well. He told I had a good looking thing. So, and by the way, just because I'm on Medicare, he threw in the upper GI. Because it didn't go, that got covered on Medicare. I was only going to go in for the lower. And he goes, well, do you want the upper? And I said, does it cost me anything more? He was like, no.
I woke up during that colonoscopy. I woke up and was watching it on the camera, on the screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's scary. I loved it. I was out cold.
I was stoned out of my head, but I saw it happening.
Yeah.
No, and I've had two, but after both of them, I thought, did they really do anything?
You never know.
Because I didn't, once I woke up, I didn't feel like any effect. Nothing was sore. I thought,
I don't know if those pictures they gave me were actually my colonoscopy.
That's exactly right.
I don't know.
That's why God made Demerol, everybody.
Yeah.
When I woke up after my first one, I didn't have anybody drive me home, and they let me go out, and apparently I went shopping.
How sad.
I have no recollection, but I was conscious.
Wow. Yeah. So
picked up home colonoscopy equipment.
No, that's my.
That's so. About it.
So tune in next week, folks, for what medical adventure I'll have next week, because that's all I'm doing.
Yeah, Ken Ceizler, up close and personal.
Yeah, a little too much.
Really,
well, thanks everybody that has taken the time to listen to us rant and rave today. I want to thank my two Pauls, my two Paul B's, Paul Block in Portland, Paul Barrosse. Paul Block, we've been friends 30 years. All right,
maybe 40. Maybe even 40.
Paul Barrosse and I have been friends for 44 years.
Okay,
Kenny, what, 25?
He wins.
We are old white men, people.
Yeah, we are. But I understand, Gary.
I've been
very excited. Did you say we're having a person of color on next week, Gary?
Yes, we are. We're going to have a person of color. Yes.
Who is that going to be?
Important because we will be criticized.
Is it a woman?
No, it's a man.
Okay. Well, we're going to have to work on the woman thing.
We'll work on a woman. We'll find a woman.
All right.
If you're listening and you're a woman, we'd like you on the show. All right. Hey, I got other stuff to do. Kenny, you don't, but I know Paul
I don't have
does,
anything
and
to
I
do.
know Paul does. All right.
Oh,
So
I
long,
have
everybody.
to
We'll let you know what next week's program
Next
is all
time,
about.
if we ever
Yeah,
do
you got to edit it.
If we ever do this again, I'll give you a tour of my walls.
We will
I would
do that.
love to see those. Yeah. Well, I would like to do a Paul Block reminiscing Johnny Carson days show one
I
day.
just
Actually,
can't
that's not
tell
a
the
bad
real
idea.
good dirty stories. I won't do it, but we got enough to talk about.
I would love to hear that. I think that'd be great.
All right, everyone. So long. Thanks.
Peace.
Love
Thanks,
to
guys.
the Messiah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you, guys.